Everybody get comfortable and sit back because I'm going to tell you a travel story. A little bit different though. It's not a story about traveling in Mexico. It's a story about me going on vacation to another place in the world, to the island of Jamaica. It's a survival story and it really happened to me. Hi everybody, I'm Mike Vondruska. Thanks for watching. Greetings from Boca del Rio, Veracruz here in Mexico. I'm on the shores of the Gulf of Mexico. The beach is right behind the camera, and of course behind the beach is the big vast Gulf of Mexico. It's about 7:30 in the morning, the sun is up a little ways, and that's what's lighting my face. This story takes place in Negril, Jamaica. I went on vacation with a buddy of mine, decided to get away for a week. Booked one of them package resorts. Now this took place in somewhere in the late 1980s, early 1990s. So this was a while ago. I'm an adventurous guy and I decided, I had seen that they were going to do this windsurfing class and then you could actually try it at this resort. They had the boards. So I signed up for it. My buddy, I think he went to play tennis that morning. I went to the class. This Jamaican guy was there to teach us. He worked for the resort. There were maybe 8 or 10 of us that decided to take this class. So the guy explains everything. He had a board on the beach, was on a swivel, and he explained about the wind and what to do. And so I paid attention, and then it was time. We took the boards, got into the water, maybe waist deep, got on the board. I'm straddling the board, and the first thing you had to do, though, was you had to take the sail that was on the mast, and you had to turn it vertical, put it in the slot, the hole, and then lock it. So I did that. I stuck it in the hole, I locked it. There was an offshore breeze, kind of pushing out into the ocean, and got on the board, and I was ready. Now, I have to preface this and say that I had sailing experience. In fact, at that time, I owned a sailboat that was moored in Lake Michigan in Chicago, in one of the docks there. This was my first time, though, doing this windsurfing. So I get on the board, I catch the wind, I lean back, I'm hanging on, and I lean back, and just as I lean back and the wind catches the sail, boom, the whole mast comes out of the board. I fall backwards into the water, the mast falls on top of me, and now I was still in shallow water. And I was like, whoa, what just happened? Okay, maybe I didn't do something right. I get back on the board, I get the water off the sail. Again, I put the mask on the inside the hole. I lock it again. I make sure it's locked. It's like, okay, this time. I get up on the board. I lean back again. I catch some wind. Poof! The same thing happens. The mask falls out of the board. I fall backwards into the water. The mask and the sail fall on top of me, and I'm like, whoa! All right. Now, you know, I'm a guy, it's like, okay, you got to fix it. So I get back on the board again, and this time I said, all right, I'm really going to pay attention to detail. I'm focused, I'm looking at the hole, I put the mask upright again, I stick it in, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not locking it properly. So I'm really spending and investing the time to lock the board. I mean, I was concentrated, I was focused on getting that. And that was my first mistake. Always, wherever you're at, especially when you're traveling, you have to be aware of your surroundings. And I was totally oblivious to what was happening to me in the ocean because I was so focused on getting that thing to lock into the board. Here's what happened. What happened was there was an offshore current and it was slowly taking me further and further out. But I didn't realize that. I was focused. Finally, when I decided, okay, I've got it. This is it, I've got it. I look up, and I was quite a distance from shore. And I'm looking back, and I always remembered that there was this big boat that was beached on the resort, on the shores of the resort, on the beach. And I could distinguish where my resort was because there are other resorts, you know, butting up against each other, and I knew that that was the one, that was my resort. It's the one that had the big boat on the beach. But I thought, okay, I know how to sail. I can do this. I've spent all this time making sure that it was locked. So I got up on the board again, I caught some wind, boom, it popped off again. I fell into the water, and that's when I realized it's not me. There's some malfunction to the board and the mast that is preventing it from staying in, because it's not that complicated. So here I am, I'm out, I'm floating further and further, and I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do? Now I have to show you. Let me get it here, because I wrote this out. I made a little drawing. Here we go. Okay, this is my resort right here. Okay, here's my resort. This is land, and there was a spit of land. There was like a peninsula that went over here, and it was, as I'm facing the shore, it was to my right. This is the open ocean right here, or this is the bay kind of thing right here. But then once I got past this peninsula, this island or peninsula right here, this was open ocean, and I had no idea what the currents were going to be. Now I had some time. This was not really to scale. This was a long ways before I would hit this open ocean, but I didn't want to get that far. I started looking at my choices. My choices were, number one, I could try to swim it back to shore, because I knew it was like a piano. You can play beautiful music if you know how to play the piano, but if you don't know how to play the piano, it's a piece of junk. It's worthless. Even though I knew some sailing, I believed that my windsurfer was worthless because there was a malfunction to it somehow. So I could try to swim the whole thing back to the shore and see what happens. The other thing is, I could let the board go, just let it go, and start to try to swim diagonally this way. And as I'm swimming diagonally, the current would be pushing me out, but before I reached the end of this peninsula, I would hopefully hit land and be able to get on shore here, and then somehow make my way all the way back to my resort. I said, okay, I'm a strong swimmer. I was a lifeguard in college. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get in the water. I'm going to lash the sail and the mast with the rigging to the board. I'm going to get in the water. I'm going to grab the whole rig through the ropes, and I'm going to do a side crawl, a side stroke toward the shore, or this way actually. I'm going to try to go this way and see where I end up. So, and I'm going to do 100 strokes. So I start in the water, and I don't look up for 100 strokes. 1, 2, 3, 4. I do 100. I look up, and I'm further away from the shore than when I started. Whoa, that was not cool. So again, I'm sitting there, I'm trying to figure this out. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And that boat that was on the beach was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I think I tried one more time to swim again this way, and it just wasn't working. This took place over several hours. When all was said and done, I was out there for approximately 3 hours. It had been early morning. The water, I'm in the Caribbean, so the water was clear. I could see the bottom, must have been maybe 20, 30 feet down. It was warm morning. I was starting to get a little bit sunburned because I've got fair skin. And I remember joking to myself that if I make it to open ocean, I'm going to have breakfast in Cuba. That was the little joke to myself. But I wasn't panicking. I wasn't really nervous. I was just in figure it out mode. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I was just about at the point where I was just going to let the board go. And the funny thing is I didn't want to let the board go because I'm thinking, they're probably going to charge me for it, the resort. But I was at the point where I thought, I'm just going to let the board go, and I'm going to swim as hard as I can diagonally this way, and hopefully as the current's taking me out, I'll get closer to this spit of this peninsula here and make it before I hit the end. just at that time, a couple resorts down this way, there was this Jamaican guy who was a worker at that resort, and he, I think, was working on a boat or something on the shore, you know, like a mechanic. He saw me, and he had been watching me for a while and realized that, okay, it looks like this guy's in trouble. He told me later he asked his boss if he could take a skiff and go out there, and his boss saw me and said, okay, go ahead. So this Jamaican guy comes out and asks, you know, are you in trouble? I'm like, yeah. And so we get the board, or I do, he doesn't go in the water. I get the board and the mask onto the skiff. Then I get on the skiff. He turns the boat around to a shore and he guns the motor. It's an outboard motor. He guns the motor and the wind hits the sail from underneath and pushes it up toward me. And to avoid it, I had to dive into the water to not get hit. And I come up and I tell the guy, I said, listen, you gotta go slower. He apologized. We got the sail back on, and this time I got on and I laid on the sail and he went slower. We make it back to shore. But here's the thing. He said to me as we're going back to the shore, he asked me this question. And it was the solution, most likely, to this incident that happened. And I never thought about it. I never thought about it. And when he asked me this question, I just looked at him, dumbfounded. I was like, I had never thought about doing this. And what was it? He asked me, he said, why didn't you stand up on the board and go, help, help, help? I had never thought of that. In my mind, I was going to figure this out because I knew that life doesn't owe me anything. You're responsible for you. The government is responsible. The resort's not responsible. In my mind, you are responsible for you. But there are times when you might need some help. And that was a lesson that I've remembered to this day. And so that's my story. I made it back to the resort. I was sunburned. It was lunchtime. I was hungry, and I got in line, and I happened to see this mother-daughter. That were a few people standing in line in front of me, and they saw me about the same time, and we recognized each other because they too were in the class. They asked me, they said, how did you do? They said, you know, that wind and that current, that was pretty strong, and we just stopped pretty quickly, as well as everybody else. And we didn't see you, but did you stop too? And I looked at them and I said, I just got back in. And they were horrified. They looked at their watch. They said, that was 3 hours ago. I said, yeah, I've been out drifting away from shore for 3 hours. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking probably what you did is you went to see the manager of the resort. You complained. You told them, hey, you guys almost killed me. The guy that was on the beach, he did not count the number of boards. He didn't count how many people came in. They were negligent. And yes, that was true. They were negligent in not keeping track. However, in my mind, and remember, this was some years ago. It's not back when everybody was sue happy. Oh, I'm gonna sue you. I just said to myself, this was my fault. I was not aware of my surroundings. This was an eye-opener. This was a lesson. And I never said anything. Now, sure, I told my friend that I was traveling with, but I never said anything to the resort. I probably should have. So that for future they could train their staff better, but I didn't think of that. It's probably the only time I can think of really in my life when I was in a serious situation, because if I had hit that open ocean and started getting into those currents out there, who knows how far I would have gone and if I would have perished. So that's my story. I thought I'd share that with you since I can't do some traveling here in Mexico at the time because of this virus thing. And I was thinking about this story last night and I said, you know, I gotta film this. I hope that you learned something. You learned that you are responsible for you. No matter what happens, you are responsible. Be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of your luggage, your suitcase, who's around you, just in case. Be aware, be aware, be aware. But don't be afraid to ask for help if it's necessary. All right, hope you enjoyed this. It's a true story. I'm gonna finish my bike ride. I came out here to bike ride and then get back to work. As they say here in Spanish in Mexico, nos vemos pronto. We'll see you soon. I remember that there was this story, it's a true story, of this airplane that was landing, I believe, in Fort Lauderdale and Miami. They're going over the Everglades, and there was a broken light inside the cockpit, or it wasn't functioning or something. The pilot, everybody in the front, where they're driving the plane, are like focusing on trying to get this light to work. To make a long story short, in focusing everything on the light, they actually crashed the plane into the ground and everybody died.